again, I'm just trying to understand the concept of time this year, because while things feel like they're moving so slowly, out of nowhere, it's already been a year, almost a year, since I bought my Apple Watch Series 5. I bought it last September, and it is already September of the next year. And it is crazy to me how quickly this entire year has flown by. So this is my Series 5 Apple Watch. It's the space gray with the 44mm aluminum body. And I got the without LTE model. Wi-Fi is enough for me. I always have my phone on me, so I didn't think it was necessary to give those stupid carriers more of my hard-earned money. I was really considering the stainless steel and the aluminum, but I ended up just sticking to aluminum because it was cheaper, which turns out was a little bit of a mistake, which I'll talk about later. Now, the Apple Watch has so many great things to go about, and I think that this watch has been a little bit of a different experience for me because I came from the Series 4, which is largely similar to this, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. But this has just been a great overall experience for me, and it showed me that sometimes tech is just best enjoyed in a little bit of a gap. So without wasting too much time, let me talk about the pros and cons of the Apple Watch Series 5 over the last year. So let me start off right off the bat. Let's talk about the best thing that the Apple Watch has to offer, and that has to be the health tracking features. This just is loaded to the gills with health tracking features. It's got ECG, heart rate monitor, and it's got so many different types of workouts. You know, it's got indoor walk, elliptical, like just the list keeps going on and on and on. And honestly, I've looked through these. You know, they're crazy. The amount of great options you get here. So there's literally there were no sports I could think of that I couldn't find on this list. So absolutely awesome. Apple has just been so good with these feature updates. It's just fantastic. The health tracking is great, and it's just going to keep improving. And a lot of this is software, so they do a great job keeping things updated as well. So if there's something missing, they will most definitely add it. Another thing that I love about this Series 5 is that this time around, we got a lot more case options compared to the Series 4. So the Series 4, you were kind of limited. It was aluminum or you went for stainless steel, and that was kind of it. There was a ceramic, but your options kind of ended there. The ceramic was only available in one color, if I recall correctly. But this time around, you've got a bunch of options. You've got the aluminum in 3 color options, the space gray, silver, and the gold. Then moving on, you've of course got your stainless steel options, which again, 3 color options, the silver, the gold, and then the space gray, space black, I'm sorry. And then you had a new one this time around called the titanium. So this was a titanium finish. It looked, I'd say, very similar to this aluminum. So I really didn't like that one as much because it was just as expensive as the aluminum ones. I'm sorry, the stainless steel ones, but they looked like the aluminum ones. You know, they didn't have that shinier finish. They didn't have that reflective mirror type finish. They had a more subtle matte finish that titanium comes with, and I think it looked way too similar to the aluminum ones to make a difference. And then of course you had ceramic. So in total, 4 new case options this time around with the Apple Watch Series 5, and there was just a lot of color options and everything in that as well. So great job with that. And I think that people often don't talk about this enough, and that is the experience of wearing this watch. A big part of it comes from the Taptic engine. The vibrating motors, the Vibrate motors in this are just so fantastic. It doesn't feel like something's vibrating. It almost feels like someone's tapping your wrist. It's like, it's so natural, and it feels like it's powerful as well. It's not unnecessarily powerful, but it's just the right amount of powerful that it's perfect. You know, I have a very hard time waking up even with alarms, but ever since I started wearing the Apple Watch, I wear it overnight. So whenever I wear it and an alarm is set, this starts to vibrate as well. And the way it wakes me up is so awesome. I never have to worry about missing an alarm again because the Vibrate motor on this is just so fantastic. And of course, you know, just look at these crazy watch faces. Look at how much information you can get on just one watch face. So here I've got my charge percent. Here I've got the temperature range. I've got the date. I've got my noise level going on here. I've got a compass going on here. I've got a second clock for another city. I've got weather. I've got the sunset and sunrise time here as well. And then I've got my activities going on as well. It's crazy, you know, there's so much information in just one watch face at one glance, and there's just so many different types. So there's really one for everyone. You know, if you're a minimalist, if you like a lot of information, if you like something a little bit more classy, there's just something for everyone. And this is something I haven't really seen on any other smartwatch, just the level of good, usable information watch faces give. This just has tons and tons of it. Another thing I have to talk about is the brightness. You know, the range of brightness on this. There's never been a situation where I was outdoor where I thought the display looked too dim, and there's never a situation in a very, you know, dark environment where I didn't think that the display didn't get dim enough. So in places like movie theaters or dark rooms, when your watch lights up, you don't want it to be extremely bright. This has that perfect, you know, it goes all the way down to such a low level, but still maintains the brightness enough so that you can read things on it clearly, and it's the perfect level of range. I don't know how Apple does it, but it's fantastic. Moving on to speakers, right? Speakers also, I don't have a Series 4 on me to compare this, but I definitely think that the speakers on this got a little bit better, because whenever I take calls with the watch, and I answer calls pretty, I'd say, regularly with it, and it's just really a lot louder, a lot clearer, and I no longer have to, you know, hold the watch up to my ear to talk, and that's something that I think the Series 5 really improved on. And of course, you know, the crown, the digital crown is just so fantastic. Look at how buttery smooth it is. Just look at how the display just, you know, I can control that brightness to bright and low, and just like it really is a dream to use. I love the digital crown on this. It's fantastic, and it just makes navigating through the UI an absolute treat and just makes it feel like the future. And that's it with the positives. Let me move on and talk about some of the negatives here. There's not a lot. I think the biggest one has to be that it's way too similar to the Series 4. So if you had a Series 4 like I did, you're not going to find much of a difference. There are only two key features that are new on this. Everything else applies to the Series 4 as well. So there's a lot of new software features, but a lot of those carried over to the Series 4. The only two things you can get on this is, number one, you get an always-on display. So I can get always on. So if it detects that I'm wearing the watch, which it doesn't right now, clearly, because I'm not. So if I'm wearing the watch, it will detect that, and I can keep the display always on. A second one is the compass. So it can use it has an inbuilt compass now that the Series 4 doesn't, and you can use that to navigate. Now, really not a very useful feature. I thought it was super cool, but I have never really gotten a practical use out of this. I'm sure that other people may have, but personally, I just have not. So there's only two new features to the Series 5, so it's not a big jump up. It's a very small evolution, but I think that the watch itself is an excellent product. Just if you had the Series 4, it didn't make sense. Another thing that is a big issue is with that new feature, the always-on display, things just don't get as, they're not optimized as well. So I'll throw some examples up on the screen. So look at all these watch faces, and they always become just darker. Like when you have always on enabled, and when you turn off your display, when the display is supposed to turn off and go to a lighter mode, what happens is they just get slightly darker. It's not like a big jump. It just doesn't feel right. You know, I feel like there was a lot more optimization that needed to be done there. It just doesn't. It looks like it was the lazy way out. You know, let's add always on, but then not do much on the software side. That's very unlike Apple, and I really wish they would. You know, another big thing is if you're in an app or something, a lot of times when you put your wrist down, it'll stay in that app. The app, you know, it'll be running in the display on the background, and this time would be like a really small thing on the top right, and that's so stupid, right? Like, if I'm not looking at the app, why are you burning that display? You're running the app in the background, just make it all dark, or go back to my watch face, and when I lift it back up, go back to that app. So it's like there's not a lot of software integration that works well with this always-on display. And that also plays right into the fact that battery life, when you have always on display enabled, is not the greatest. So if you do a lot of workouts throughout the day and you have intensive compilations on your watch face, like I do with this audio meter, if you've got the compass app running as well, there's gonna be a big drain. And since there's so many things refreshing and so many things going on, it's just the always on display will absolutely, I'd say that it almost cuts down battery life in half, and it's not good. I just don't know why that Apple hasn't optimized the software more to take advantage of the always-on display by creating elements that are not as power intensive when the display is in the the dimmed mode is what I'm going to call it. And one more thing, while the digital crown is fantastic, it operates like a dream. I have a big issue with this button. As you guys can see, it's like completely recessed. It doesn't come out at all. It's very flush with the design, and it looks good in photos, but when you use it, I think it's very tough to feel that button out sometimes. And it just isn't easy to press as well sometimes. On the Series 3 and older, the button came out just a little bit, not by a drastic margin, but just enough that it felt a lot more clicky. The button response was better, and I really liked it. So I do wish that in the next Apple Watch moving forward, they don't keep that button as flush and kind of bring it back. Something that's just easier to use overall. So now that I covered the pros and cons, let me just talk a little bit about what are some of the features I would have liked to see on the Apple Watch and what I hope to see in the next upcoming Apple Watch. So I would definitely like a lot more watch faces, some more options. A lot of these are starting to feel old now, kind of very similar to what we'd have had for years. The customizability factor, while there is customizability, I just wish there was more. I wish that they'd kind of allow at least certain third-party watches or something that would kind of reinvigorate this watch face experience. And they really, really, really need to bring out watch faces that incorporate the always-on display a lot better. Right now, most of the faces just get a little bit dim. They really don't drastically change, and that's been really bad for the battery. I really wish that they will, in the upcoming years, they utilize always-on display in a much smarter way than they have been right now. It's very unlike Apple to miss something like that on the software end of things. And moving on, I really do wish that since they have the always-on display now, they increase the battery size. So, this is a very tiny battery, and this is a very tiny device altogether. So, battery life is never going to be great, but I do wish that they would at least get me through an entire day with always on, with all my, compilations, with all the workout and everything that I do. Most days it ends up being not 100. I end up running out of charge if I have the always on display on. So I just end up turning that off so that I can save battery. And when I turn it off, I end the day with like more than 30, 40, or 50% charge a lot of the time. So I really do think that battery should be a big focus moving on with the next Apple Watch. And again, this is something I talked about at the beginning of the video. I bought the aluminum version because my justification was that I don't need to spend the money on the extra case because I care about the technology, not the actual materials of the product. But that was a big mistake because the aluminum does not come with sapphire glass. And this time around, I absolutely destroyed my glass. It scratched so bad. Like I have never done this. I'm very careful with my tech, but I don't know what happened to the Apple Watch this time around. Just from the week I got it, I started to scratch it up, and it has just been so bad. It looks so bad. I'm kind of ashamed of it. Like, this is so bad. I never do things like this with my devices. I really take care of them. I take pride in taking care of them. And this time around, I'm so upset. And I really do wish that I sprung for the stainless steel model because that would have sapphire glass, which would have made a lot of these scratches just not happen. So the next one, either I'm going to have to start putting screen protectors back on my Apple Watch or I'm going to have to buy the more expensive one. I'll really have to decide when the new models come out, but that is something that was so disappointing to me. I just really wish I hadn't done that. And finally, I want to talk about the Hey SIRI experience. I didn't want to trigger all your devices there. It's good, but I think that there's a lot of times where it just misses. Even when I raise it up and I say it, it doesn't pick it up. There's a lot of times where I have to repeat it, or just, the experience has improved definitely over the last couple of years, but I think there's still a bit of a gap, You look kind of stupid when you put it up to your face, you say the keywords, and then it just doesn't do anything. People look at you like, look at this guy trying to show off his technology and it's failing, I wish it was that integration was a little bit more seamless and it actually worked every time. It just doesn't do it most of the times, and it's a little bit disappointing. So that's it for the Series 5 Apple Watch. It's a great product, right? But I just think that my experience was a little bit disappointing because I came from the Series 4. That didn't have too many differences, right? There's only 2 key new differences, and honestly, they're not that big either because I don't use one of the features, and one of the features is not very applicable to me in real life. So what happened was I ended up not really enjoying this watch as much as I should have. You know, I enjoyed my Series 4 so much, and I honestly do wish that I never sprung for this one. I wish I would have saved the money, and I think that this shows me a big thing that I don't have to get the newest, greatest piece of tech every year. Sometimes taking a break, taking, you know, a gap year in the middle, especially for things that the evolution process has kind of slowed down, like the Apple Watch, it actually makes sense. Because if I would have gone from the Series 4 to the Series 6, I would have enjoyed it way more. But going from the Series 4 to 5, there's a very small jump, and I'm fairly certain even the 5 to 6 jump is going to be very small. So I really wish I would have done that, but you know, you live and you learn. So the next time around, I'm going to be a little bit more careful when I decide to upgrade some things, so I can actually learn to enjoy the differences instead of just have tiny ones that I don't utilize. That's it for this one, guys. If you have any questions about my Apple Watch experience, be sure to ask down in the comments below. And if you haven't already, follow me on social media. I'll have all my handles right on the screen and, of course, in the description as well. And if you haven't already, be sure to head over to my blog on my website. I just started it a couple weeks ago, and I've been trying to be very consistent with that and upload some topics, you know, about cars, about tech, everything in the written media. It's a lot more personal. It gets a lot more nitty-gritty with a smaller detail. So I really would appreciate it if you could go check it out, give me feedback on that as well. That's going to be it for this one, guys. I'll catch you in the next one.